Welcome back to those of you who came last week, and for those of you who are just joining us this week, welcome. We are Community Alliance Pact, and we are a financial literacy nonprofit who focuses on educating the community on those basic finance tips that you may have missed whenever you were younger, or if you just want to learn them now. Since I know not a lot of schools, they don't actually have classes on this so that you can go towards financial freedom. Alrighty. So, welcome back to those of you who joined us last week. And if this is your first time joining us this week, thank you for coming to support. We're going to be starting on a very important topic, which is budgeting. Budgeting allows you to take control of your finances and get towards that financial freedom that you've been so desperately yearning for. Now, if this is your first week, you may be like, who is this talking to us? Who is this other guy with his camera on? They're the only two people. Well, we are your CAP financial literacy speakers. My name is Takiria Gibson, and I graduated from Sam Houston State University with a major in finance. So I do know a bit about finance and taken a couple of those classes that we feel like we've been needing. And I also was blessed to take some of those classes in high school. So I'm glad that I'm able to be here today and share the information that I've been able to gain over the years and just give that information to you. I'll give Livingstone a minute to introduce himself as well.
Hello, everyone. My name is Livingston, and I graduated from the University of Maryland. Just like some of you, I was also struggling with finances when I was little, and I realized that this is a major challenge for me and some of my friends. And I decided to go get the knowledge, get the skills, and then solve my financial situation. When I was able to do that, I decided to share my knowledge with my friends, kind of replicating what I've done, and I saw positive changes in their finances, and that is what we are doing. Yeah, we are going to be sharing our knowledge with you so your financial situation can also improve.
Thank you for those encouraging words. If you missed last week, we have a quick recap in order to get you all caught up. So first off, financial freedom starts with changing your mindset. Last week, we talked about developing an abundance mindset and having more positive beliefs towards money, just believing that you'll be able to get out of the negative position that you're in right now. And since you're here today, you're already taking care of step 3, which is building financial literacy, since that's one of the main ways for you to create wealth. Next is also changing our daily habits so that they can lead to long-term financial improvement, like tracking your expenses and not being loose-minded as to where exactly everything is going and what it's being used for, not letting your money use you and you using your money as a tool. And lastly, knowledge is power, using that to shape your financial future. Here is our table of contents for this week. So first, we're going to talk about a couple of budgeting rules. We're going to go over 3 mainly, one of them being the 50-30-20 rule. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of that rule before, but even if you don't, you'll learn a little bit about it today. Next is tracking your expenses and being able to tell the difference between the different types of expenses, whether that be fixed or variable or occurring every now and then. Third is understanding your spending habits and understanding where everything is going and why it's being used the way that it's being used. We have a couple of recommended resources and tools that we will give to you so that you can not only learn about budgeting today, but also take that and apply it to your own life with your own expenses and income. Our objectives for today, we have 3 main ones. Number 1 is understanding the basic 50-30-20 budgeting rule. Next is learning how to track your expenses effectively. And lastly, budgeting tools and apps for financial organization. So I know we're talking about budgeting, but we never really talked about why that actually matters. And I know you've heard that budgeting matters. You need to stick to a budget. How can you just let your money go willy-nilly? But you never really understand why that actually matters. So we're going to go over that so that we can get an understanding. So number 1, budgeting gives you control over your money. Last week, we did talk about how money can be a tool that can run over you if you don't use it properly. So budgeting is almost like the armor that a knight needs in order to go and do their job. So if you go into a battle without any armor, you're bound to get hurt. So it's the same thing here with budgeting, even though it's not like hand-to-hand combat. But if you're fighting with your money every week, then it's basically hand-to-hand combat and your money is controlling you. Next is preventing overspending. If you budget and you write these things down or you have them on your computer, you know exactly where everything is going and how much you actually have to spare on those extra expenses or like those things that just pop up. Or if you just want to go out and you need to know how much money you're going to be working with whenever you do go out, or if you do want to spend extra money that you feel is extra and it may not even be extra and now you spent your light bill. Third is it reveals spending patterns. So with spending, there can be these things that you buy over again, month over month, or there's things you buy week over week. So if you understand where exactly that money is going and how you're actually spending them and whether it's important or not, just revealing that truth first is helpful and is the first step to even starting your own budget. Then number 4, we have accelerate your financial goals. Now, a couple of you may have student debt or any type of debt that may be outstanding. And if you don't have a budget, how can you expect yourself to get to those financial goals, to get rid of that debt that you have if you don't even know how much money you have to spare or how much money you can put towards your financial goals without hurting yourself overall? Common budgeting mistakes. There's a lot of different common budgeting mistakes that people can make, just being too strict and or quitting when it gets tough or hard to just track everything. With being too strict on yourself, you need to make sure that you're giving yourself some room to wiggle. If you're being too strict with everything, then it makes it very hard on you in order to keep going and just do what you need to do. Ignoring irregular expenses may be another thing that people do. So like that retail therapy, that's an irregular expense. So you want to make sure that you're keeping track of that. And just because you did do the retail therapy and you know your life didn't immediately end on the spot, make sure you're keeping track of that so you know that maybe for the next month you might not have as big of a retail therapy budget as you thought. Since you do have to still take care of your other bills, there are way more bills that come before retail therapy. Lastly, on the opposite side of that coin is having no room for fun. So if you want to make sure that you're doing something that also makes you feel like life is worth living, because if your entire life is just making money so it can go towards bills, then it won't feel like it's worth it. You won't feel that same sense of accomplishment from just carrying out what you said that you would do on your budget. Now let's get into the different budgeting rules that we can actually use. Now that we've discovered all of the different reasons why we can't budget or why it's hard to budget or the mistakes that we're making with budgeting, let's actually talk about budgeting. So first is the 50-30-20 rule. This is one of the most common budgeting rules that people talk about, whether that be financial advisors or financial influencers. The 50-30-20 rule, the way that it breaks down is 50% of your income is going to go towards your needs. So these are your things that are non-negotiable. Like you can't just be like, oh, I'm not going to pay this month and I'll be okay. That's stuff like rent or mortgage, groceries. You do have to eat every month. So you do want to make sure that you're taking that into account. Utilities that go along with your housing, those are non-negotiable. You can't just decide one month you're just not going to pay for water and then you think you're going to have water for that month. That's not how that works. Health insurance. Health insurance, that may be something that you get through your employer, or if you don't, that is something that you do have to make sure that you're taking care of with the money that you do get in every month, since any type of insurance is pretty expensive. You know, the days of like $20 insurance, long gone. Next is car payment. So some of you may not have a cash car and you may pay on your car every month. So that's a car note in addition to car insurance, which you also need to have. So both of those are a package deal. And even if you don't have car insurance, you can get in trouble with the law. So you want to make sure that you're keeping up on that. Next is wants. So this is the area everybody wants to put the most money into since it's their enjoyment essentially after they're covering those needs. So this goes to the retail therapy, shopping, dining out, hobbies. And I know you may want to spend a lot of money on the things that don't essentially matter, but you do have to understand that your needs do come first and then the enjoyment does come later. But also in that same enjoyment, you do need to have savings. Or for some of you that may need to change the savings to debt repayment. It honestly just depends on your personal needs. And I will say for these upcoming budgeting rules, you do need to make sure that you're doing what's best for you and not what's best for your neighbor. So just taking into account everything that you have in place. So if you have a lot of debt, you do want to make sure that you are putting more of your money towards the debt more so than savings. Savings are still very much so important and everybody needs savings. But for some people, that debt is really weighing them down. And if you continue to ignore the debt, then it's going to continue weighing you down more and more. And then that can start going into your wants because you have to spend less in your wants because you just have so much debt that's accumulating. Next, we have a 70-20-10 rule. The 70-20-10 rule is a bit different from the 50-30-20 since it does put your wants and your needs into one category. So it's more broad, it's more generalized compared to the other one, which was very specific. So that 70% is your expenses. So those expenses can include your want expenses, like your want for retail therapy, that will be included in the 70%, but also included in that 70% would be your rent and utilities. So you want to make sure whenever you're breaking down with these budgets, you're listing out every expense that you have and then categorizing them based on whether it's a need, a want, or it's a maybe. Because there are some of those expenses where you're like, I could probably cut back on that, or I could cut this expense out entirely. So laying out all of your expenses and being able to see what's a need, what's a want, that really does help, especially with this 70-20-10 rule where it's a bit more generalized. Next, we have that 20% in savings, which is similar to the 50-30-20 rule. It does explicitly say 20% savings unless you have debt. I do want to emphasize that debt is the silent killer. So you want to make sure that you're keeping a handle on all of that and keeping track of what payments you need to make every month, because some people, they do their debt repayments as an auto pay, or they may just pay it every couple of months. It depends on what repayment plan that you have. So the repayment plan that I have right now for my student loans, they're an every other month kind of thing, compared to some people, they pay it a little bit every week or a little bit every month. So it truly just depends. But I do have all of those things listed out based on the interest rates and whether or not interest hits immediately on them. And then lastly, we have 10% invest. So whether that be towards your financial goals, whether your financial goal is to retire early, or if you want your kids to go to college, or you want to go back to school, that could be another financial goal that you have. So just making sure that you're keeping that 10% for that investment towards the future, whether that be college, retirement, whatever the case may be, just keeping that 10% for yourself. And this 10% is honestly what people mean by pay yourself first. So this is things that help you in the future. They may not help you right here and now, but they help you in the long run. And they're essentially paying yourself so that you can become a better person. And for our last rule, we have zero-based personal budgeting. So with this one, it's listing out all of your income and then all of your expenses until at the end of the month, you have zero. So it's not really more so like, oh, at the end of the month, I'm just going to be broke. It's not like that. It's basically allocating every single dollar that you get in. So whether you take care of all of your expenses and then you have $200 left, put in those $200 towards those want expenses that you have, whether that be towards, oh, I want to put 100 towards my retail therapy, 50 towards my subscriptions, and then 50 towards going out. So making sure that you have every dollar that's coming in and putting it somewhere so that it's working for you and not you working for it. I personally use the zero-based budgeting since I would prefer to have no leeway. I want to know exactly where everything is going and how much I'm going to be spending on every little thing. Creating your budget. So with creating a budget, we have 5 main steps. And in these 5 steps, we do have things to be wary of whenever you're doing these different steps. So step 1, we have track your income. So in this, you're going to list all the income you get, whether that be passive or active. Like, let's say you work a job hourly, so that's a source of income. But then you also DoorDash on the weekends. That's another source of income. Let's say you cut yards on the weekends. That's another source of income. You do hair. That's a source of income. You Uber. That's a source of income. Anything that's making you money is income. So you want to make sure that you're keeping track of that and kind of have an estimate of how much that is getting you every month or every 2 weeks, depending on how you do your budgets. Next, we have list your expenses. So we have fixed expenses and variable expenses. So with fixed expenses, these are your expenses that are the same every month. Like they're not gonna change. Most of the time, they're not gonna change. So rent, for example, your rent is not gonna change unless your landlord raises the rent. But that's not really something that happens in the middle of your lease since it's a signed agreement. But let's say you try to renew your lease and then they're like, oh, it's gonna be $200 more than it was the past year. You want to make sure that you're being wary of that. Then your insurance. I don't know about anyone else, but personally, my car insurance goes down depending on how safe of a driver I am month over month, since I do have a little device in the windshield of my car. So it tracks my braking, my phone distraction levels, my cornering, how am I turning, am I speeding, how often am I speeding, and just using that to my advantage. So my insurance goes down a little bit month over month. So within the past year, it's gone down like a couple of dollars every month. But those couple of dollars add up because then I could put that towards my retail therapy expense. So it does pay off to be a safe driver. Next, we have those variable expenses. So these may like change month over month. So like entertainment and eating out. Let's say a lot of your friends have birthdays in October. You can expect to spend a little bit more on entertainment and going out expenses that you already have. So you want to make sure that you're keeping track of that so that for the previous months, you can make sure that you're putting a little bit more towards your entertainment. So you're not all the way in October and now you're flat broke after all your friends' birthdays. And also like eating out. I don't know about y'all, but I'm a DoorDash fan. So those expenses range from time to time. Or like if a new restaurant opens pretty close, I'm going to want to try it. So I do try to make sure that I'm keeping track of everything and set a budget for myself, even if I do go eat out, because whenever I do eat out, I want the appetizer, I want the entree, I want the dessert, I want a sweet treat afterwards. So making sure that you're keeping track of all of that and being wise with your decisions while also giving yourself those expenses that you deserve after working so hard is important. Next, we have categorize and prioritize. So earlier I was talking about identifying the difference between things that you need and things that you want. So making sure that you can realistically identify between the two is very important. Because I may want DoorDash, but I might not need DoorDash. I might need to just go find something in the fridge. But I do need to be aware of that and just know exactly what I want. Then spread your funds. So this goes back to the budgeting rules that we just discussed. So pick one of these or mix one or two of them together to get what would best work for you. And lastly, we have tracking and adjusting. This is one of the most important rules. If you are just tracking your expenses, but you're missing your numbers or you're overspending in one area that you thought you wouldn't, or you're underspending in another area, you want to make sure that you're keeping track of all of that and adjusting as you go along so that the budget doesn't control you. You need to make sure that you're taking control of your budget and adjusting as life goes on, because life is very unpredictable. So you want to make sure that you are adjusting often. Do not adjust your budget once a year. That's not going to help you. Your life isn't going to be the exact same as it was in January as it is here today. So you want to make sure that you're keeping track of everything that you have going on and adjusting as you go along. Now, let's do an example so that you can actually see what this looks like. So I have a bank statement for you all. We're going to look at it and we're also going to get a glimpse of the budget tracker. So to the right here, we have an example of a bank statement. And as you can see, it is categorized by the different expenses. So to the right here, we have the category and it has supermarkets, restaurants, gas, etc. So up here first, you want to make sure that you're including your income that you have per month. So for example here, I just put 2,000. Let's say you get 1,000 from your job every 2 weeks. So putting that together and then all of your expenses here, and then it'll tell you how much you have left over in savings to do with any of your other financial goals that you want to reach. So we have emergency savings, we have debt payoff, and any other goals that you may have, like that college fund for your kids. And then it also breaks it down into a graph right here, which automatically updates depending on what percentage you put here. So let's go with the bank statement on the right. Our first one, we have gas. So here at the bottom, we have ExxonMobil. Gasoline, we have $33.04. So you're just going to go over to your right and then you're going to put in $33.04. And it'll automatically update down here so that it says what your total expenses are. So some of these numbers that I have in here, they're just example numbers. So you can update any of the cells that aren't green. So this cell, you can't update this one because it just automatically adds up all of the expenses that you put on the side here. So the work is already done. And here, you're going to want to make sure that you don't click these because it automatically calculates it for you. So the work is also done there. Another expense that we have on our bank statement, we have groceries. We actually have groceries a couple of times on here. The first one, we have Giant Landover. We have $62.29 at the supermarket. And then we also have it again here for $40. So I know some people, they do their grocery shopping in weekly increments so that it's not spoiling and you're not overbuying food and then it's not lasting long. So if you want to do that, you can just put it here in groceries and you can either add them together with the calculator, or since we do have our super smart sheet right here, you can just put in equals $62.29 plus $40.89, and it'll do the work for you and add them together. And then we also have Eating Out. We got DoorDash on here at the very bottom for $44.05 at Pizza Boli. And we're going to put it right under here. And we're going to put in our $44.05. And then our total at the bottom is going to update on its own. Budgeting tools. So, for example, I just use the Google Sheets budget tracker, and I also have a couple of apps that me or my friends use. So we have Every Dollar. Every Dollar is more so for those who want to set up pockets for their budgeting. So Every Dollar is better like if you have multiple financial goals that you're hoping to reach and you're just setting money aside for those, paying yourself, and using Every Dollar will be the best for that one. Then we have Rocket Money. Rocket Money is for those who are a bit more visual and need to kind of see like color-coded charts as to what's going on with their money. And it differentiates between how much you earned in that month and then how much you spent in that month. So as you can see in this chart, this person spent way more than they earned in May, and it helps keep track with the colors. And then it also has their income listed here. And then it also has bills and utilities. And with this one, you can actually connect it to your banking app so that they can just automatically pull it over from your banking app to save you that work. Then the last one we have is NerdWallet. I personally use NerdWallet. I feel like it's a bit more clean and structured than Rocket Money. And I can also connect my high yield savings. I connect my saving account. I have my checking account. I have my credit card. And all of those just go automatically to NerdWallet. And then I'm also able to connect those over and see where everything is going. With NerdWallet, they also do give you reminders. So like if you put in the due dates that you have for your bills, it'll automatically remind you and you can choose how far you want them to remind you. So I have my bills that come out on autopay. I have them in my calendar so that I can know ahead of time. But I do have NerdWallet send me a 1 week in advance reminder so that I can know when exactly everything is coming. So I'm not surprised by different bills taking my money out. Tips to stick to your budget. One of the ways to do it is automating. So if you do automate, especially if you get direct deposit, you can do automation so that it automatically takes the money from whenever you get paid. So you never even truly see the money. So the money automatically goes to the different budgeting buckets that you have. So you're not just having all the money to yourself and accidentally spending it because it's already gone. And it's not like you're missing the money because you never had it in your possession. Next is using cash. I will say I didn't believe this one until I actually started using cash. Using cash definitely helps because it puts that cap on you. Whereas if you're using your debit card, you have all the money that's in your checking account to your disposal. Whereas with cash, once you run out of that $100, you're out of that $100. You're done spending for the day. It really does help on those times where you're going out for food with your friends and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, you know what? Throw on the third appetizer, I don't mind. I have the money, I have all the money in my account. Next, we have setting clear financial goals. So whether that be you want to go on vacation by this time next year and just knowing exactly where you want to go and how much you want to save up for that and having a realistic idea of how much you want to save up for that and not just, I'm going to go halfway across the world with $500. That's not realistic. So you're going to want to make sure that you're being realistic with everything that you're saving up for so that your budget has a purpose. Lastly is reviewing monthly. Reviewing and adjusting is very important with budgets. It's not something that you can just set and then just leave it alone. You need to be looking at your budget every month, if not every 2 weeks or every 2 months. I would say 2 months is really pushing it, but making sure that you're reviewing your budget and seeing what you did good and what you did bad and what you could do better at or what you could spend less on. These are all different questions that you need to be asking yourself monthly. For action step 1, we have identify your biggest budget struggle. Trends are a thing that can have people struggle with their budgets because whenever the newest trend comes up, you don't want to be left out, and now you're buying something that you're not even going to really use 2 months from now, and now you just spent $80 on a doll. So you want to make sure that you're not trying to stick up with the trends, since it's not really important at the end of the day. Those shoes aren't going to keep you warm at night. We have action step 2. We want to try to make a budget and stick to it. Alrighty. We have our financial influencer of the week. We have Dave Ramsey. He is one of the most well-known financial influencers. Some of his main focuses is paying off debt, building emergency funds, and then also investing for your future plans like retirement. Livingstone, would you like to talk a little bit more about Dave Ramsey?
Okay, so there's a popular quote from Dave Ramsey. He said, "You have to be sick and tired of getting sick and tired of your financial situation," which means that your financial situation is your responsibility to take care of. And then his major focus is staying out of debt, tackling all your debt, and then building generational wealth. He's also focused on you cutting your credit card. Like, he doesn't want people to stay in debt. And the best way to actually stay out of debt is to pay off that debt, pay off that high interest debt, have a repayment plan, whether you're using the snowball method or the avalanche method. But don't worry, we are going to explain all of this method in our next webinar. So Dave Ramsey is all about you staying out of debt and building generational wealth for yourself and your family.
Check out Dave Ramsey. A lot of the financial influencers that we've included for the webinar, they all talk about some of the topics that we're talking about in the webinar. So this is just kind of enrichment and people that you can work into your daily lives, just listening to them in the mornings, like before work, instead of listening to music before work. Try to listen to the quick 15-minute podcast, or if you have free time, just watching one of his episodes on YouTube and just taking that time to invest in yourself to make you a better person. Then here are our recommended resources. If you would like to use the spreadsheet that I had earlier, you can scan the QR code here to the left and it'll take you directly there so that you can update it with all of your income and expenses. Take that and stick to it. Don't just look at the pretty worksheet and just go, oh yeah, that's nice, but I'm still going to DoorDash every day. You want to make sure that you're actually sticking to it. Use the tips that we've talked about today and make sure that you're adjusting. Then for the book that we have for the recommended resource of the week, we have Your Money or Your Life, which is by Vicki Robin. You can find this on Amazon. It was less than $15. And you can also find a used version. This book does talk about controlling your money and not letting your money control you. And then we also have those apps that I was talking about earlier, which we have Rocket Money, Every Dollar, and NerdWallet. Now that we're at the end, we have our key takeaways. We have understanding basic budgeting rules. So we did talk about the 50-30-20 or the 70-20-10 or zero based. And budgeting is important to track your expenses effectively. And you can start with an Excel spreadsheet or use one of the beginner-friendly apps that we discussed today. And our quote for the week comes from Proverbs. We have chapter 13, verse 18, which is, "Whoever disregards discipline comes to poverty and shame, but whoever heeds correction is honored." And I feel like that was very important considering that we talked about budgeting, and budgeting requires a lot of discipline. Thank you for coming to week 2 of our webinar. If you have any questions, please drop them in the chat. We hope to see you next week for our topic, which is saving your first $1,000. Thank you all for joining us here today. We hope to see you next week.
Thank you all for coming, and we hope to see you again. Don't forget, you gotta invite your friends. You gotta tell them to come. We're going to be teaching more and more and sharing more resources next week. Have a good evening.
All right, bye everyone.